Okay. Oh wow, that's very close. So today, I thought I'd just carry on where I left off, and just talk about what happened after they found Natalie, and yeah, how things went from there really. So obviously, I spoke about the Sunday when we received the phone call to say that they'd found a body and that they thought it was Natalie. From then we had to wait for a formal identification, and that did happen quite quickly. I mean, I think they were fairly sure just when they found her anyway, otherwise they wouldn't have said so. But and then so Natalie's body was taken, I believe it was to Cambridge, and where the pathologists tried to determine cause of death. And what we got back from that was that Natalie had a head injury, and that she had defensive wounds, so she had cuts to her hands and arms, and she also had a broken arm. So obviously during whatever had happened that night, she had tried to fight him off, and which is obviously not consistent with the story that we got, in that he claimed he threw this jade egg and it struck her on the head. So that the injuries that she has are not consistent with that story. So which obviously, you know, he's sticking to. So so yeah, so we had to wait for that to all happen, and it did take a little bit of time for them to do what they needed to do, from the 22nd of May right through until when we got Natalie back, and we actually had Natalie's funeral on the 4th of July, and we chose that day particularly because well, it's Independence Day, isn't it? So so we kind of joked and said that's Natalie's Independence Day, you know. It was her moment, and we asked everybody to wear traditional black, but because it's a bit of a standing joke in our house that me and my sisters have got more shoes than Clarks, we asked everybody to wear their favourite party shoes, and there were some absolute belters on the day, so my sister was cremated at West Hart's crematorium, and I'll be honest, the night before before the funeral, I had this terrible fear that we were going to get there and there was just going to be nobody at the creme, and that probably sounds really stupid, but I don't know, I suppose it just the thought that nobody cared, that, you know, that she was gone. And when we came round in the car around the corner to the building, there was just people everywhere. It was absolutely full. The whole place was just absolutely full. And something that was quite unusual is that actually the cameras were there, and they filmed inside the service, and they also filmed afterwards at the wake. That's actually, most of it is not actually on the documentary, but the True Vision team very kindly made us a video, a DVD of the day, and actually, which may sound a bit odd, but bearing in mind 2 of the children are very young and probably will have no memory of that day, it does actually mean that we've got something that we can talk to them about and share with them when they're old enough, and if they ask any questions. So yeah, that was it was a really hard day, and I suppose for me, and when I've watched the video back, I just remember that morning was I just kept saying to myself, you've got to just keep it together, don't cry, just keep it together, and because if you lose it, there's not going to be anybody to kind of keep things moving, the momentum going. And so that was, yeah, it and I look back at it, and it was like, just at the bit where I'm literally, I was holding my mum up, just trying to get her into her seat. I mean, I was literally holding her up. She just felt like she was just going to disappear underneath me. It was awful. And yeah, just really just can't, I you know, when I think back, you know, I can't believe we were ever in that situation. So then we went to, obviously, to the wake afterwards, and we just wanted it to be a celebration. You know, I said that at the funeral that how Natalie died will never define her. And, you know, the fact that she was a great mum and a great friend and, you know, a caring daughter and a loving sister and, you know, all the other things, that was who Natalie was. She's not a statistic. No woman should ever be a statistic. And that's what we wanted, you know, that day to be. It was about a celebration of her life. And so we had lovely pictures, and everybody wrote messages on balloons, and yeah, it was really nice. And seeing lots of old friends from way back, from when we were kids, and, you know, people that travelled from Wales and all over the country to be there that day. So it was, yeah, it was really touching. And then, you know, you kind of come away from it afterwards and you just think, what next? So for us at that point, there were two things going on. First, there was the issue around the family courts, and then there was also the issue of the trial. And the way that the system works is that until he's either been convicted or acquitted, the family courts can't do anything, basically. So that was all kind of rumbling along in the background, but nothing, no final decisions could actually be made until after the verdict of the trial. So the trial started at the end of October and actually finished on the 4th of November. And I only went down for one day of the trial. There were a couple of reasons. Firstly, I don't think I wanted to hear the lies and everything being, you know, without, I know the courts have got a job to do, but they drag everybody through the ringer, and I didn't want to hear that. I didn't want to hear my sister being degraded, or I just didn't want to hear it, and I certainly didn't want necessarily to hear what the pathologists had to say. I have seen things and understand what happens, and I didn't want to hear that about my sister. So that was some of the reasons. And I know when, because my mum's quite deaf, so she had the hearing loop in the court, and I know when the pathologist was speaking. We tried to persuade my mum not to go into the courtroom when that was happening, but she wouldn't have any of it in her usual stubborn manner. So my Auntie Tracy actually took the hearing loop off of her, so she couldn't hear properly what was being said, because we just didn't want her to have those images in her head. So so that was kind of that, really. And it was I remember my sister went down a few more days, and we made sure that there was somebody there from family every single day. My mum went every single day, and I don't quite honestly know how she managed it, to be honest, because literally in the at the end of July, I believe it was, my mum was really poorly, and to the point where I seriously thought we were organising another funeral. I walked into the hospital to go and see her, and she was asleep when we arrived, and I had to just take myself back out of the room because I didn't want her to see me upset. And it was a real kind of moment where I just thought, oh my God, I'm going to be planning my mum's funeral because she just looked so ill. It was terrible. But somehow she rallied, and she, you know, the first day of the trial, I couldn't believe I was looking at the same woman. She marched into the courtroom ready to give everybody hell. It was quite funny, really. So yeah, so that was kind of how it went. We made sure somebody was there from family every day to support mum and to be there. I think, if I remember rightly, Paul's family were there the first day, and so what had happened was he was charged with murder, which at that point he was still denying. He was still saying not guilty. He was denying. So the first day of the trial, everybody turns up ready for the trial to start, and at that point he then changed his plea and tried to say it was manslaughter. So then suddenly everything changes, and it's no longer just about trying to prove that he did it, it's trying to prove that there was intent and that it wasn't an accident. So the prosecution had to kind of change how they proceeded in the hearing. It meant as well that I didn't get called as a witness, and I was I was relieved in some ways because I didn't want to have to stand on the dock. But then in other ways, angry because I don't actually understand why I was called as a witness for the defence, and I won't ever know that. I mean, I have my suspicions that it might be around my statement and something that I said in my statement, and that he wanted to dispute that because it was kind of detrimental to his character. But if he was expecting me to change what I said, he'd have been sorely mistaken. That was kind of another area that was a bit odd. But so the trial kind of went on, and through the trial he did the same thing to my sister Kerry, that he didn't do it he was sorry through the window. And the day that I was there, he was just saying I'm sorry through the glass, and we just ignored him, which I think is probably the best way of dealing with it. I know the final day of the trial, my brother Sean was there. He mouthed to him, "You're going down," and Paul mouthed back something along the lines of, "I don't care, I enjoyed every second of it," which was actually witnessed by other people in the gallery. And the police took statements to that effect after the actual verdict was given, because, you know, obviously that will come up in his parole. And I think that probably is true. I don't think he cares, and I think he did enjoy every minute of it. And I think what we're getting is like I said before, is that bunch of flowers after you've done something you shouldn't have done, trying to make it right, and you can't. It's not genuine. It's just a pattern that he follows. So yeah, so that was what happened up to that point. They had various witnesses. They had some people from the prison that he'd asked questions about ANPR cameras, and the guy that they asked, he asked, was the reason he got convicted was because of the ANPR cameras, and obviously told Paul this. And then he'd asked questions, Paul had asked questions to this guy about if you've done something, you better just admitting it, or, you know, just risking it. And yeah, so there was lots of stuff, and it was quite incriminating. But the prisoner that was called as a witness, it was quite funny because he had a bit of a prima donna moment, and initially said, I'm not speaking. So we all got ushered out of the court while they had a word with him, and then came back in, and he still was saying, I'm not going to talk, but if you ask me questions, I'll answer. So it was a bit surreal, really. And then they had a guy from the Apple shop was there, and he was talking about the day that my sister had taken the phone in, and this was quite interesting because the guy from the Apple shop but very clearly remembered my sister going in, and he remembered the fact that the phone had been tampered with. He remembered the fact that he could see that it was numerous times that somebody had tried to access the phone, not just once or twice, and that also there was a tracker that he'd actually managed to get into my sister's phone at some stage before she changed the passwords again, and that he had some sort of tracking GPS locator type thing. I think Apple have got them. I think it's my phone or something. If your phone gets stolen, you can track it, and so basically he put that onto her phone, and so he was able to use his phone to see where her phone was, which was a bit scary to say the least. But so there was those kinds of things were coming out. Some of the stuff that didn't actually go on in court was they didn't bring that they made the decision not to use evidence from previous partners because it was quite a long time beforehand. It might have given him cause for an appeal, so they chose not to add that. But obviously you hear that on the documentary about the things that he did to these women, and the fact that he'd taken these women to that particular wooded area and threatened to kill them, and those kinds of things. So there was all that stuff came out as well. And then the day, the actual day that the verdict was given, I would have loved to have been there, but I made a decision early on in the trial that if the date clashed, that I wouldn't be going, because it was my daughter's first birthday party. And so I sort of explained to my family that I wasn't going to allow that man to take anything else from me, and I wasn't going to miss my daughter's first birthday party. She's my youngest. I won't be doing it again. And yeah, so for me it was important that I was here. As much as I would have loved to have seen them handing that verdict out, my little girl has to take priority. And so I was here, and my sister phoned me as soon as the verdict was handed out, and they all came out of court. But it was a unanimous decision, and my sister, I wasn't there, but my sister says, like, obviously when you're in the family room waiting to go back in, they do tell you, like, when the verdict's given, not to make any sound, you know, just to kind of sit and you know, just accept that. And when the verdict was read out, apparently the whole gallery just erupted in cheers, which I don't know if Paul's family were there, but that must have been really hard for them, really hard. But you know, if you do the crime, you do the time, don't you? So that's kind of the way I look at it, is that if he hadn't have done this, then he wouldn't have been in that position. So yeah, that was what happened in terms of the trial, and he was given 20 years minimum. He's got to serve 20 years before he's eligible for parole, and we'll see what happens at the end of that. So I'll leave it there, and then I will do another vlog about what happens with what is kind of the process with the family courts. Okay, thank you.